We invite you to take your seat. Prenez vos chairs, s'il vous plaît. Pasen a sentarse, acérquense, adelante que hay espacio. Take your seat, come front, there are space. There are still empty spaces here. Come, we are waiting for you. We are waiting for you. So nice to have you here, yes. Nice that you are here, it's nice. So we are asking people in the back to come to take a seat. We are still waiting. We are a little bit behind, but yeah, we get excited. Were you not excited about the presentation, right? I almost cry with the adding dots in the ocean. It's so nice, so nice. S'il vous plaît, prenez vos chairs. It will be French speaking in the stage, so if French is not your favorite language, you need headphones. So I like that. If you need to understand French, you need the headphones. So we ask you to take your seat and be reminded that we will be having French-speaking people on stage. So if you need translation, please take your headphone. Si necesitan traducción al francés, tomen sus audífonos. Va a haber francés en el stage. Yeah, they're here. Okay, so we will give some minutes to the people to get ready for the translation. We have them here. Can someone from the back help me with the channels for French and English in Español? Good. Okay, so we will be having English and French on stage, so please take your headphone if you need them. Okay, so we have had the first half of the morning. What we are doing here today is a glimpse into the future. We are sneaking in a window looking towards the future. How the future will look like, we don't know, but one thing we know. If we move towards something, we achieve that something. So this is why we are getting inspired of challenges, ideas, collaboration. We heard it's about people, for people, and with people. It's about out of the silo, different layers, different sectors, national, local, city, internationals. It's not only about bilaterals. Now we are going in more complex relationships. We are going not only from government to government, but also with partners. And suddenly it happened to be we have this artificial intelligence talk all around. Some people know, some people don't have a clue of what to do with it. But I have heard something that still inspires me. Despite technology, despite how far we can get in artificial intelligence, is still depending on us what to do with that. So to properly be inspired on how the transport sector will be affected, incentivate or promoted to change through artificial intelligence, I would like to welcome on stage Sebastian Ibold, my colleague from the GIZ, to properly introduce this session.
Is this working? Yeah. Okay. Just let me check if this works. Okay. Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this session, AI, Artificial Intelligence, Holy Grail, or Last Coffin Nail, with a focus on the question of how artificial intelligence is applied for promoting actually sustainable mobility. And I think many of you maybe used ChatGPT or other AI applications, and anyways, algorithms in our social media work, they are everywhere present. So I think this today is something which for many of you is not very new, but we want to shed light on the critical question, Holy Grail or Last Coffin Nail. And to start with, technological development and innovations which fundamentally changed our societies, that's nothing new. We always saw that. And I think technology is best when it brings people together, quote by Matt Mullenweg, is for me a very inspiring perspective on it, because especially in the field of transport, to reduce the time to meet and to reduce the time we can overcome the way between A and B. This is something, if this is railways or airplanes and so on, always allowed us to come closer together, actually also to be here together today. And therefore, I think we talk about technological development not out of an empty space, but that is actually the source of evolution. But of course, nowadays, as many of you know, in the field of transport and mobility, we see another wave of technological innovations, which pretty much is driven by the development in the field of digitalization, platform economy, new stakeholders coming into the game and offering new mobility services. Some of them, we cannot really say today what is the contribution to sustainable mobility, what will reduce kilometers traveled. Will we have autonomous driving or automated driving on the streets in a massive scale very soon or not? But we can say already, and with the Moroccan colleagues yesterday, we tried that in the evening with shared scooters and so on. They are platform-based by shared mobility companies, driven and powered by algorithms for wayfinding and so on. This is something which already influences our mobility behavior. And last but not least, we see driven by digitalization, and last but not least, artificial intelligence and algorithms, the breakdown of the boundaries between the sectors of transport, energy, and digitalization. Those sectors are merging, and I believe digitalization in general and AI is the tool and the key to ensure that they are further integrating with electromobility, shared mobility, or autonomous mobility, and so on. The background picture, this kind of pixeled face, I think represents a little bit that we don't know where we will end up. Will there be something which will shape in the way we human beings would do when we think, when we ideate or come up with creative ideas? Or is there a more dystopian future? And you see some quotes here. For example, artificial intelligence is not a substitute for human intelligence. It is a tool to amplify human creativity and ingenuity. Or by Yuval Noah Harari, the danger is that if we invest too much in developing AI and too little in developing human consciousness, the very sophisticated artificial intelligence of computers might only serve to empower the natural stupidity of humans. It shows there are many opinions and there are many perspectives, scenarios, but we don't know yet. But what we know is that we are in a fundamental moment of human evolution where technology will play another role than what we were used in the past. And last but not least, governments around the world. I spent the last 12 years in China. China has a very much big data-driven approach to promote digitalization, AI, and so on, and also issued a big regulation package. The European Union is in the process of legalizing, implementing the European Union Artificial Intelligence Act, which has a very much risk-based approach. And I know also India, Canada, Japan, and many other countries and regions are in the process of, from a governmental perspective, trying to shape, aligned with own interests, political, socio-economical, industry policy related interests on how AI is used and applied and regulated, but also promoted. And the question is, will we see a new wave of globalization, which is driven by our further voyage, the further travel into the digital sphere in general, where AI and in particular in the field of transport plays a big role, or will we see more fragmentation, more nationalization on the question of how to shape the regulation and the systems, basically, in artificial intelligence, where we have the question regulation to mitigate risks versus keeping systems maybe more open in order to foster innovation. Last but not least, this is just a little invitation here. The QR code, if you scan it, you can download a position paper, which some of our colleagues we recently launched. It's called Artificial Intelligence Sustainable Mobility, where we believe it is worth it to discuss the principles when it's about artificial intelligence in general and its application in the mobility field. For example, transparency, privacy protection, innovation, the question of social impacts, ethical principles, and so on. We invite you to download this paper and to discuss more about it. But I think we are not the only ones who ask themselves the question. I'm very happy that today we have the opportunity with inspiring speakers, with people they work on this field and consider the impacts, that we can have this session today. So I welcome today two colleagues, Mr. Dr. Engineer Martin Memmel. He is the head of Smart City Living Lab at the German Research Center for Artificial Intelligence, to talk about AI and data-driven approaches in sustainable mobility. We will afterwards listen to Madame Sandra Richter. She is AI Strategy Manager of the Deutsche Bahn on AI at DB, the German Rail, best practice AI in sustainable mobility. And then we will go into a panel discussion with Madame Daphne Groß-Jansen of the BMZ, Madame Basma Aissaoui of the Moroccan Ministry of Interior, and Mr. Sudhanshu Sinha of the governmental institution Niti Aayog of India. And let us please welcome now Mr. Dr. Martin Memmel to enlighten us a little bit AI, Holy Grail or Coffin Nail. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot for the introduction, and thanks a lot for the opportunity to provide some insights here. I will try to be very quick because 10 minutes is not a lot of time. How can AI and data-driven approaches support sustainable mobility? I will not dig deep into specific algorithms, but try to provide some insights about the role that, in my opinion, AI will play in these transformation processes that we need to tackle. And I was also asked to provide some definition first about AI. That's something we are continuously asked. You see here a word cloud with some of the big topics that were often broadcast in the media in recent years. You see that the word cloud is a little bit older because there was already a hype before we talked about ChatGPT and large language models. So there's a lot of broadcasts about artificial intelligence in media. What is artificial intelligence? Usually, we use a definition that says AI is that when you have an algorithm that works with data, usually a lot of data and heterogeneous data, and provides a result that we somehow consider as intelligent. I leave it up to you to elaborate on what's intelligent or not. We can have very, very basic algorithms. We can have very sophisticated, fancy things like generative AI. In the end, it probably doesn't matter. We have an algorithm that seems to do something meaningful to us. And the outcome of this, of such an algorithm can be executed automatically or not automatically. Usually, I think we should definitely keep the human in the loop, but these are the main aspects that characterize AI. With this technology, we can do an awful lot of things, especially when we talk about urban application contexts and when we talk about mobility. But we sometimes have the tendency to lose the focus on what we're aiming for at all. So the French architect Cedric Price asked his students in a lecture in the 60s about what the consequences of new technologies are for architecture. And I think we should always keep in mind, what are we aiming for? So what is really the question that we need to tackle? So in our case, what role do AI and data-driven approaches play in promoting sustainable mobility? And I here show a so-called policy cycle that tries to provide a process view on political decisions. So usually in the beginning we have a problem that is identified. For example, we need to change mobility in the way it's currently carried out, especially in cities. Then such a problem is probably put on the agenda. Then we identify or define a potential solution. This solution is then implemented, usually by administrations. Then we evaluate if it worked out or not. And depending on the answer, we start again, or the problem is solved if we are lucky. And usually, I think AI does not play a very important role in identifying the problems. So we know the problems regarding mobility pretty well, I think, without carrying out any artificial intelligence. Also, AI does usually not play an important role in putting things on the agenda. That's something completely different. It might provide some input that motivates the stakeholders to put something on the agenda, but it's not the decisive point. It's a little bit different already when we talk about the policy formulation, because AI offers new solutions. For example, we can only talk about potential solutions that involve autonomous driving because AI has developed so fast and now delivers solutions that were completely unrealistic 10 or 15 years ago. And usually we also use data or whatever we call evidence to formulate policies, but these are also not objective or not neutral, and I think AI is also a bit critical here. But even without AI, we already had these problems. That's an example from the 30s in the US. That's Mr. Robert Moses. He was park commissioner in New York in 1939, and he was pretty famous for using data as a reason to build big highways and bridges through poor quarters. So it was not, of course, any decision officially based on races or targeted against poor people, but it was only, they claimed, data-driven. And that's a very critical issue, I think, and we need to be very critical too when we use algorithms, because algorithms have no opinions, they have no ideas, they do exactly what we tell them. It's always fed by data from us as humans, and also the things they are optimizing are also defined by us as humans. So we don't need to be afraid of AI, we need to be afraid of people. And that actually didn't really change, but now, of course, the impact of such an algorithm is much bigger than only these data-driven approaches that we see here. Then traditionally, we are very good when employing AI when we talk about the implementation of a solution and the evaluation. Just to show you one example here, that was a research project carried out in Germany where a city wanted to identify meaningful locations for mobility hubs, so people leave their car and change to public transport or car sharing or whatever, and then you can use data like, in this case, floating car data to identify where did people end up in the city when they passed by this potential location for a hub. And then the mobility planners can check, the bus lines are properly developed, or we need some more transport in the morning or some different bus lanes, and meet their decisions also based on such an input. That's something very traditional where AI or data-driven approaches can play an important role. Also, of course, in the evaluation. But the question is, are these the decisive points for the changes we need when we talk about sustainable mobility? And here I want to elaborate a little bit on a, I think, very nice report that was published last year from a European research network. And this report elaborates on the role that digitalization can play in general for deep sustainability transformation. And I want to focus here on two aspects specifically, namely first, system innovations. So digital technologies should be used for system innovations to fundamentally change production patterns and consumption practices in all sectors and spheres of action, not just for incremental optimizations that maintain the status quo. And that is, I think, also extremely important for mobility aspects. Of course, we can make combustion engines better and better, and we can work on traffic signals to make things a little bit better, but it really doesn't tackle the big problem. So we have to take care to invest our energy into the proper processes. And regarding sufficiency, the prevailing strategy of using digital technologies to increase efficiency must be guided by an overarching strategy of sufficiency, which aims to achieve satisfaction of needs. So we need an enough instead of a more, because I think we all learned that we have finite resources on this planet. There's only finite space available in cities. And we learned, hopefully, from the last 50 years that just building more roads and building more autobahns, we are very popular for that in Germany, is not really a solution. So I think to tackle these questions does not involve implementation or evaluation. This tackles these first three phases in the policy cycle. We need to put the proper things on the agenda, and we need to find the proper solutions in our policy formulations. So I think we agree that there's a fundamental need for fundamental transformations, and I'll show you this iceberg here to elaborate a little bit about the role of technology here. I think everyone who was ever involved in a transformation process knows that it has an awful lot to do with all these non-digital analog aspects that I show here. We have different cultures, we have an interest in we have politics with specific interests, we have economy with specific interests. It's a multi-stakeholder process, many levels of government are involved. We have a lot of resistance, people want to stick to their habits. We have legacy, we have people's needs and people's values. I could also elaborate on this for hours in Germany about our love to the combustion engine, and some ministries also love the combustion engine still. So these are all processes that are not at all related to technology. And of course, there is also technology, it has to work also. And so we have some maybe 10-20% of digital technologies that are involved. And here on top, I guess, is artificial intelligence. Might help, might not help, but I think it's not the decisive aspect when we tackle these transformations. And yeah, so I will finish with a call, let us aim at a transformation by design and hopefully not by disaster, because it will definitely come and it would be great if we design it. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, thank you very much, dear Martin. I think that was perfectly setting the scene for our next speaker, and I would like to invite you, Sandra. You are the AI strategy manager of the German Rail, the Deutsche Bahn, and we are very much looking forward now to an input on how exactly AI is implemented in your organization or institution to make the life of people in the mobility sphere better. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Sandra Richter is my name. As we said, I'm working for Deutsche Bahn and I'm AI strategy manager there. So I'm going to tell you a bit about our best practices for AI in sustainable mobility. So together with the business units, we are driving forward the railways AI innovation so that our customers can arrive more punctually. So I'm letting you in on a big business secret now. Deutsche Bahn is not as on time as we would like to be at the moment. And we are now really trying to tackle that on different layers. So we have to build, obviously, but building sites are always making us more or less punctual. So we are trying to tackle this with AI next to others. So, but how came AI into being? Just to set the scene a little bit. AI is not as new as we might think. The first artificial intelligence thoughts have been made in the 1950s by Alan Turing himself. So he developed the first Turing tests to test if a system is intelligent or not. Then it took very, very small steps over a very long time. And then we got to this point where it like rocketed into the next level. And on exactly this turning point, what happened is three things. We had three things we haven't had before. We had computation power at our fingertips in the cloud. We had storage at our fingertips in the cloud. and we had a lot of money invested into this kind of technology. And whenever those three things come together, AI can bloom and flourish, but we still should be aware that this hockey stick is not going on forever. There will be one point in the probably nearer future where AI is going to be commodity, and where AI is not going to be anything special anymore. We will just use it. Or we will never use it again. That's the other option that might happen. So I did bring you a few numbers, a few drastic numbers. 84% of executives think that without AI, they will not have the opportunity to grow enough in the future. So that contradicts absolutely what we have in the next set of numbers that says 80 to 85%, so nearly the same number of companies are stuck in the proof of concept trap. So they are doing proofs of concept, they are fiddling around with AI, trying things out, but not really tackling the technology on a strategic way, on a scaling way. They're not really putting it into their operations. Only 10 to 15% of companies do that, and only 5% of companies are really making the biggest part of their revenue with AI. Deutsche Bahn, by the way, is in the middle of that. So what are we doing and how are we doing that? We are using an AI factory. We did build an AI factory over the last 4 years. And what we are trying to do is we have and had all those proof of concepts, so all those individual, smaller or bigger AI initiatives, AI projects that were supporting little parts of our overall processes. And what we now do with the AI factory is to connect all those initiatives, to connect all those POCs and bundle them into bigger context, into bigger products, and by doing that to support much bigger parts of our overall processes. So we did build an AI factory, so we did standardize how we build AI and what we build in AI. So we are focusing on parts of our business, parts of our processes where we believe AI can be of help, and we do not focus on AI as a technology itself. We do not do projects just for the sake of doing AI. We do projects, and if at the end of the day we see that AI is not the best solution for it, we just change it, and we keep doing those projects even if they are not AI anymore. But now to the most important and to the fun part. What exactly are we doing? We are divided in 4 big areas where we are using AI. We are using it in railway operations. We are using it in diagnostics, in condition-based maintenance, and we are using it in capacity planning. Let me give you a few examples. We created a kind of a traffic jam card for railways in Germany. So by now we know for every piece of track in Germany how much capacity it has left, or how much overcapacity it is. What you can see is most of the tracks are relatively okay, but then you have those little points where we are much over capacity, and whenever a piece of track is 150% over capacity, the delays are rising exponentially. So what we have right now is this insight, and now we are using this insight, for example, when we plan new building sites and we plan the traffics around those building sites, we are able to plan them while not using those already overcapacity track parts. In the nearer future, we will be able to identify those overcapacity track parts and find ways around them, even while we are planning our schedules. Just maybe one point of side information. We do plan our schedules without overcapacity, that's for sure, but we do not always have influence on the whole schedule, because we are getting third-party traffic onto our tracks that sometimes is planned only like 10 days before the actual day of operations. So what we do here is we extrapolate, or we predict what the actual real traffic on the current day or on one day in the future will be. Not only what we have planned, but what we can suspect will happen in the future. That's the AI part about it. We use it in diagnostics, as I said. So we have camera bridges, as you can see here. There are cameras installed on those bridges. Our trains can go through those bridges, and those cameras will be able to find to find damages on the train. Especially that is important, to find damages on the roof and underneath the trains, because to inspect those areas, we would have to have someone climb onto the roofs, or we have to actually lift the whole train to be able to look beneath it. And with those camera gates, we are able to have an all-around picture. No one has to stand out in the rain to inspect those trains anymore. And we find those damages. We have the complete list, or an more or less complete list of at least visually inspectable damages, even before the train ever goes into the workshop where it can be repaired. So we can plan a lot better how we can use our workshop tracks. I can just invite you to go and inspire with us. Take your own issues, take your own environment, look at it, and see what you yourself can do with AI. You don't always need the biggest large language models in the world to have the first kind of impact. Just go with open eyes through your world, and be inspired. Use AI for your best, but don't let AI use you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Sandra. I think that was a very inspiring insight into how the organization, when it's about predictive maintenance and so on, or also the efficiency potentials of AI to reduce delays and so on, is already applied. And now, because what I said before, I think we are in the process of many chefs are cooking different dishes in the moment. Many countries and regions are working on own regulations. So the question is, which role plays harmonization? And I think there's nothing better to go into this topic than inviting three other colleagues to our panel. First, I would like to invite Madame Basma Assaoui, Head of the Division on Mobility Planning of the Ministry of Interior of Morocco. And I'm very happy that you are here today, because since January I'm also based in Morocco. Secondly, I would like to invite Mr. Sudhanshu Sinha, Expert Advisor of the National Institution for Transformation India, Niti Aayog. Thank you very much for being with us today. And last but not least, I'm very happy that we have a representative of the BMZ, Madame Daphne Groß-Jansen, today with us. You are Senior Transport Policy Officer at the Federal Ministry for Economic Cooperation and Development, the BMZ, to share a little bit of perspective on the international cooperation and development cooperation work. Thank you so much for being with us today. Yeah, I would like to start with the very first question, which I would like to address to you, Madam Asawi. The question is, could you please share with us Morocco's perspective on the role of artificial intelligence with a focus on the potentials in the field of sustainable mobility, which policies, which strategies maybe are out there, what are the drivers of AI in Morocco? We would be very delighted to understand the Moroccan perspective on the topic. Thank you so much.
Merci, bonjour à vous tous. Merci Sébastien. Tout d'abord, je tiens à remercier Madame la directrice générale de la GIZ et toute personne ayant exprimé ses vœux de solidarité et de soutien suite au séisme qui a frappé le Maroc. Donc, pour revenir à votre question, Sébastien. Donc, aujourd'hui, le monde de demain implique beaucoup de changements qui sont liés justement à cet envahissement de la technologie, des nouvelles technologies, de cette intelligence artificielle qu'on vit tous au quotidien. Donc effectivement, ça a une grande importance en matière aussi de mobilité et du transport, et ça change réellement le quotidien de la vie. Au Maroc, le Royaume du Maroc accorde depuis plusieurs années une importance à cette thématique qui est l'intelligence artificielle, ou bien plus tout ce qui est numérisation, digitalisation. Je sais que ce sont des notions qui sont un peu différentes, mais ça commence à avoir plus de visibilité. Donc il y a une loi qui est la loi 3113 relative aux données détenues par les collectivités, c'est-à-dire le citoyen il a la possibilité d'accéder aux données. Il y a le nouveau modèle de développement aussi, à travers la Commission nationale du nouveau modèle de développement aussi, qui accorde une importance comment on accède aux données. Donc beaucoup de chantiers sont en cours. La thématique elle est gérée au Maroc par un département ministériel qui est le ministère de la Transition énergétique et de la réforme de l'administration, qui a créé une agence, qui a sous sa tutelle une agence de développement du digital, et qui a pour mission d'accompagner le gouvernement marocain, les citoyens, pour accélérer la transition énergétique et aussi favoriser la réflexion sur le numérique et fournir des conseils aux citoyens et aux décideurs. Donc concrètement, quand on passe sur le plan opérationnel et en rapport avec le transport, aujourd'hui le Maroc investit en matière d'infrastructure de transport, c'est-à-dire pour arriver à l'intelligence artificielle, il faut d'abord qu'on ait une infrastructure adéquate pour mettre en place un système IA. C'est-à-dire qu'on vise les nouvelles technologies, notamment à travers tout ce qui est en matière de gestion de trafic, c'est-à-dire les caméras, la mise en place des caméras de vidéosurveillance pour la gestion du trafic, toutes les tramways qui sont aussi qui ont des systèmes d'aide à l'exploitation et à l'information des voyageurs, les bus aussi. Donc en fait, on est en train de construire l'écosystème pour mettre en place l'intelligence artificielle, également à travers la planification. Et comme ça a été présenté dont je remercie, c'est très intéressant aussi, c'est-à-dire qu'il faut avoir une bonne planification à travers la donnée. Donc aujourd'hui, c'est surtout la collecte des données, la mise en place de la bonne infrastructure pour pouvoir installer des systèmes de transport intelligents et par la suite faire l'exploitation et l'utilisation de l'intelligence artificielle en faveur, bien sûr, du développement du système de la mobilité dans la bonne voie, c'est-à-dire en faveur du citoyen, en faveur du côté positif. Donc aussi, il y a les radars. On a l'installation des radars, je pense environ 500 radars qui sont installés au Maroc pour pouvoir, justement, question de sécurité, pour assurer quand même une certaine sécurité routière. Il y a plusieurs actions actuellement qui sont c'est les tramways, les bus, le réseau ferroviaire. Et puis aussi cette question de la mise en place des observatoires. C'est une réflexion qui est en cours au niveau du territoire. Donc, je pense le transport urbain au Maroc, il est géré au niveau des collectivités territoriales. Donc, notre rôle est d'accompagner Le ministère de l'Intérieur, à travers la Direction générale des collectivités territoriales, a pour rôle d'accompagner les collectivités pour développer et promouvoir le secteur et aussi pour bien exercer leurs compétences. Donc voilà. Merci.
Thank you so much. I think you made a lot of very interesting points. I mean, especially what you said, Morocco now with urbanization, with the development of new cities, city extensions, and last but not least, the high capacity new infrastructures, that there is the question of what infrastructure we also have in place in order to collect data as a basis, then basically also for the right governance and so. And I think I would like now to give the same question actually to Mr. Sinha, who would like to share from India, so to say, the other part of the world, on the question of how the Indian government is perceiving AI. I know you're very ambitious and working on a huge regulation package too. Please, the floor is yours. We are very much interested.
Thank you, Sebastian. At the onset, must congratulate and GIZ for organizing this particular event and, of course, inviting me here. So, like the India that you see today is that it has got huge demographic and digital strength. So, world's most populous democracy, and at the same time, youngest also. So, the average age of Indian would be what, 28 to 30 years of age? Almost little 18 or 20 years younger than that of Europe. And this advantage of young age, youthful India, would continue to be with us for next 50 odd years. So till 2070, we are going to be youngest. That is the demographic strength. Now, digital strength, let's put it this way. The way digitalization has gone through, it's amazing. So I put it this way, and just one indicator may be that the consumption of internet data in India is more than that of China and US combined together. So that is the consumption of data. And the more interesting part is, it is more in the rural areas as compared to the urban areas. So it defies all the, the logic and sense that how exactly it is happening, but that is what is happening. Now, every minute, 18 to 20 people from rural areas, they are migrating to the urban areas. That means that in times to come, 2% of Indian land mass will be contributing 98% of GDP. That simply means that the urban areas have to be managed most efficiently. And then the question of mobility comes in. Yesterday in the training session only we were told that in the mobility stream, in the electric vehicle stream, in the advanced chemistry cell, there are some 1.2 billion data points that needs to be managed. Yesterday only we were told. And then we had an AI expert who was telling that it may not be possible to do all the things without AI. So that is what the scenario is. In India, we have got a lead ministry called Ministry of Electronics that is taking it, and Ministry of Electronics that is taking it forward, that has laid down the regulations, that has laid down national strategy for artificial intelligence. That is one initiative. The IITs are another ones which are taking it forward, how to go in for what regulations and how to make it all the more responsible. That is the second one. And third is, if I might say, from Niti Aayog, National Institution for Transforming India, we have got a concept of Atal Innovation Labs. So innovation should be, it should be going all across the country. That's what the idea is. So there are 10,000 Atal Innovation Labs, and almost 7.5 million students are directly involved into it. And these labs are not in the upscale schools or so. The most interesting thing is that 60% of these innovation labs are in government-aided schools, and 96% of them are in schools which are either co-educational or which are exclusively for girls. So you can understand that what a gender and exclusive and inclusive approach to this is. So the Atal Tinkering Labs, the IITs, Government of India's clear-cut regulations, these are three pieces which are taking this responsible AI forward. So I would put it this way, that AI's role in mobility cannot be minimized. It has got to be there. Rather, I should say it has to be welcome. And the way it was said in the beginning, that we should be using them and not the other way around. So that is what I would like to say, yes.
Yeah, thank you so much for this very inspiring input from India. It seems that similar to Morocco, India has also very, very strong institutional setting already in place for dealing, for proactively developing the question forward on how AI contributes, last but not least, to sustainable mobility. And thank you also for touching this aspect of inclusive mobility and also highlighting a little the point of the rural areas in that. And now, after some insights from our countries here, I would hand over to the ministry, actually the BMZ, Ms. Groß-Janssen, to share with us how the BMZ is perceiving artificial intelligence. Where do you see the potentials? Where do you see the risks? And what role does international cooperation and exchange on those perspectives play, last but not least, for all of us here in the room who come here also to learn from each other and to cooperate with each other? Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yes, we've heard from our two colleagues something that's, I think, true for all the countries that belong to what we perceive of as the global south, the developing world, however you want to call them. They need access to technology, they want access to technology, and they need, to some extent, cooperation, international cooperation, in order to be able to access these technologies. That is the point for regulation, for example. If technology of AI is going to be supportive of sustainable development, it is going to need a regulation. For example, because the platform economy will only create good jobs where people can earn the living wages if we have labor standards related to, you know, this kind of this sector of the economy. We of course need regulation on data protection and privacy, because we are going to be talking of a lot of sensitive personal data that we are going to need, for example, for traffic planning. That can have also a huge impact on political stability. So that's one part where we come in with we work with our partners on fair and sustainable access to technology, on really having, you know, the institutional and educational setup, because you need e-skills, not only user skills, but also programming skills. Locally, you need digital innovation and production locally in order to harness it for sustainable development. And not all of our partner countries do have the financial or political capacity to do that completely on their own. But they want to be there, we need to go there together. So we need international cooperation for this. And one last point, one quick point, we need good data and open data, because this kind of development is driven by access to data. And this is a second point. A lot of data is being produced, but it's being produced commercially. So do actually governments have, you know, the potential to pay to access those? The Transformative Urban Mobility Initiative of BMZ launched this year the TUMI Data Hub, for example, as one answer to, you know, open access to good quality transport data and information for our partner countries. That's one of the answers we're giving. There are other answers in different fields, but yes, it plays a central role, I believe.
Yeah, thank you so much for highlighting those very important points. Also focusing on the question of, what do you call it, capacities in the learning field, e-skills, exactly, and the question of how to jointly work together in this field, and also the question of what you mentioned, the platform economy. I mean, we see tech companies writing the codes, writing the rules. And I'm not sure on the individual level, to what you said, or as governments, are we already fully aware of what the deep interests, you mentioned the commercial part in that, of those tech companies around the world really are? So thank you also for the call, for collaboration and for jointly exchanging on that. And I would like, because time is very limited, I'm sure we leave everyone not only with answers, but also with more questions. Last but not least, before we leave, I would like to ask all of you in maybe 1 or 2 sentences, because the topic was actually AI, Holy Grail or Last Coffin Nail. Maybe it's the Holy Coffin Nail, I'm not sure, in 1 or 2 sentences, just to summarize, how to mitigate risks and how to ensure that AI will actually benefit sustainable development in the future. Martin, maybe would you like to start?
It works, sorry. Yeah, I think there's everything that we need to consider when employing AI, like making transparent which data we use and making transparent what the outcome of the algorithm is extremely important. It's also important now when we don't use AI, because all the planning processes should also be transparent and publicly transported also in a democratic way, that we discuss about these different pros and contras when we employ new solutions. That is, I think, the biggest impact we can expect, to have this transparency and to have this open democratic discussion about what these decisions will lead to, because they will always have upsides and downsides.
Thank you very much, Martin. Sandra.
As an answer to the question, what it is, I think it's both and neither. AI is just another new tool in our toolbox. We shall use it, but we shall be aware that it is like a knife. It's sharp. If we hit it into our eyes, might hurt. So just use it responsibly. Think about the data, because the data is everything that AI uses at the end of the day. And if our data represents a situation that we want to change, maybe AI is not the actual tool we should use, or we should enhance AI with mechanisms that make it more responsible to make decisions for us. And we should always, and on any stage, have a human eye, have a look on whatever an AI is going to decide.
Thank you very much. Ms. Assaoui?
Oui, effectivement, je pense que l'ensemble des participants ont partagé cette idée de l'importance justement de l'être humain. Parce que c'est lui qui a créé l'intelligence artificielle, c'est lui le cerveau. Donc en fait, pour réussir l'intelligence artificielle, il y a plusieurs défis à soulever, des challenges. Donc à part tout ce qui est en relation avec la donnée, l'utilisation de la donnée, la disponibilité de la donnée, la sécurité de la donnée, il y a aussi cet aspect non seulement d'infrastructure, d'écosystème intelligent, mais aussi de la bonne gouvernance. C'est très important d'avoir la possibilité de décider d'aller vers de l'intelligence artificielle, ou bien d'aller vers les décisions ou bien des propositions de l'intelligence artificielle, de pouvoir évaluer, c'est-à-dire que l'être humain doit toujours être au centre, non seulement en termes de décision, en termes de gouvernance, que ce soit par rapport à la gestion de la data, mais aussi par rapport aux mesures à mettre en place suite à l'utilisation de l'intelligence artificielle. Donc c'est très important de pouvoir avoir une très bonne gouvernance à côté du système de transport intelligent et bien sûr de l'intelligence artificielle. Merci.
Thank you so much. And Mr. Sindra, please.
So like it is absolutely needed. It's a good friend, but a bad master maybe. So that is what I would say. It has to be properly regulated. It has to be sanitized, audited, and maybe a lot of global partnership we can think of in developing what we would aspire for a responsible AI is.
Global partnership, that sounds very much like something what is very much needed, I would say, and the perfect transition to also you, Ms. Gross-Jansen. What do you think about that?
I think it's clearly the last nail to our human coffin if we don't manage as a global community to decarbonize energy production fast. But to resist dystopia here, I think it's very much an important tool if we manage to put together good global data, good data that is gender disaggregated, that is taking into account social status, for example, that is taking into account old habits, so that we have from this, this ocean of data drops from the past that we prolong into the future using AI, that we actually have a good image of what the past patterns really were, not a rough sense based on, only half the patterns, for example, because we don't have gender disaggregated data. And international cooperation can very much help in this, because we can set the scene and regulate and call for good data and good programming. And obviously, we do have the power to regulate what needs to be regulated across borders, because it cannot be done individually by every state.
Thank you so much for this very strong call also towards collaboration and exchange. I think we can hopefully start here with exchanging more among us on that topic. And please, when you leave, remember when you take the train to Frankfurt maybe, when you share pictures on social media, AI powers our lives already and our decisions on how we move from A to B, which way to choose, or what we see in our timelines on LinkedIn and so on. Let's be aware of the opportunities, somehow a little bit on the challenges. And last but not least, thank you so much for this audience. I hope we inspired you in some points here, and international collaboration, I heard partnership and so on, will thrive further. Thank you so much. Merci. AI-powered picture?
Yes, sure. Thank you very much. Please come to the front. Thank you very much. It's a noiseless camera, as you noticed. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Thank you very much. Thanks.
Thank you, Sebastian. Thank you to all panelists for this glimpse into the future and more opportunities for AI in public transport, for sustainable transport. I think we heard responsible use of AI is key. And